So let's watch this video on Nisa and the Dobie Johansi in sub-Saharan Africa. I had told you about this video, and let's hear her story in her words.
When the white people first came, I was already a young woman with breasts. Before the white people came, we did what our hearts wanted. We lived in different places, far apart, and when our hearts wanted to travel, we traveled. We were not poor. We had everything we could carry. No one told us what to do. Now the white people tell us to stay in this place. There are too many people. There's no food to gather. Game is far away and people are dying of tuberculosis. But when I was a little girl, we left sickness behind us when we moved. It was on an evening in the early winter when they brought me to the marriage hut. Naturally, I didn't sleep with Gunda that night. I went home and slept with my mother. And of course, Gunda and I didn't live together for many, many rains.
Nrai and Gunda were married in 1953 when she was 8 and he was 13. By 1958, Gunda had begun to live with Nrai and hunt for her parents in bride service.
When we finally had to live together, Gunda and I, we slept with my bottom near his head near my bottom, so there was everything between us. I refused him. I said in my heart, give me someone else. This Gunda I don't want. Maybe it wasn't Gunda himself I rejected. I just didn't want a husband. I thought that when I was grown up, I would find another husband. Somebody I myself had chosen. I refused to sleep with Gunda or even play with him under the blanket. My heart refused it. When we girls get our breasts and begin to grow, our mothers praise us. Hey, they say, look at you showing. Now you're doing what women do. They encourage us about being women. We tease each other and joke about what's happening to each other and compare. But we're scared. Many of us are scared about sleeping with men and having babies because of the pain and danger. And when Gunda began to trance, it was worst of all. I thought, he's crazy. I watched and thought, I'm living with a madman. My husband has gone insane, and I am married to him. I'd look at him in half-death and think, this man is positively dangerous. Finally, this is how my thoughts came to care for Gunda. The old people took me and said, listen, short face, this man won't hurt you. Look at him learning to cure people, the owners of medicine. the old people, even Kwigbe himself, are teaching him. This is how they spoke to me, and I began to listen. And so we had our first child, and it died, like Shaga's child. But I was not afraid. And then we had our daughter, Huaka, and she lived. She was born to us before the white people came.
Jesus says, you know who God is? You can ask for anything. God can give it to you. He can help you. Jesus said, I am God. I am God's Son.
For this morning I wanted them to know that Jesus Christ not only gives us water and bread and food and things like that, but as for the woman at the well, he asked for water and he sort of promised her something else in the place of that. Another water, that means real life.
Now really. Those two at the water hole had never even met before. How can a woman go down in a water hole with a perfect stranger? Calling himself God's son. It would have been very bad. Her husband would have punished her for being alone with such a man. That man was fooling her.
So here we see Nisa and her husband. First of all, you notice no hospitals, and they have small populations. So population, replenishing the population with new births is very important. So we have an arranged marriage, a joining of families. In this situation, again, this is something that goes back a long way. Family alliances. The Dobi Jahansi are thought to be related to the first humans in Africa that moved out around the world, continuing the same type of culture since before that. The difference is European contact. It drove them, like we saw in chapter 5, it drove them to water holes. They had to gather around. They were marginalized. They could no longer hunt or forage because they were in close contact. Disease could spread through quick. And this happened after Europeans came. Now the Europeans bring religion. And she wasn't very receptive to this preacher's message. Why? Because you know everybody in the area. And so if you're at the water hole with a stranger, what are you doing there? There are no strangers here. And that stranger could be dangerous. And so it's a very different situation. And I would say that this group has a much closer, realistic relationship with the planet than we do today. Marriage forms and functions. Monogamy, one spouse, the most common type of marriage around the world. Polygamy, more than one spouse. This is the most preferred type of marriage around the world, and there are 3 different kinds. Polygyny, one husband to more than one wife. Polyandry, one wife to more than one husband. And sister exchange, exchange of cross cousins, maintains and creates family alliances in matriarchal societies. Monogamy is a form of marriage in which one woman is married to one man. Often becomes serial monogamy. Like in our culture, we have a high divorce rate, but we're monogamous. So we have several monogamous relationships. Ideally. Polygamy means multiple spouses and does not distinguish between these two types of marriage. One where 2 males are married to a female and females are married to one male. Polygyny, a marriage of one man to 2 or more women.
Leon is just as baffled by the idea of an arranged marriage.
I hid in the hut when my future husband came around. Our dads chose our husbands. We cannot disappoint our husbands. We can never say no. If we said that to our parents, they would beat us. We had boyfriends before we got married. And we stay with our boyfriends now. But we have to be very careful to make sure that our husbands don't find out.
So now that you're married and you have sex with your husbands, but none of you have children, huh?
We do have sex with our husbands, but we are too young to get pregnant. It is good if your husband has other wives, because then you can share your work in the home. And when you are ill or delivering a baby, there is always someone there to help until you recover.
I do definitely feel that it's a commune. It is a community, and even when I arrived and they welcomed me, within like a matter of days they were saying, we really like you and we want you to be Oludorup's sixth wife, and they weren't joking. They couldn't understand why I was saying no, I'm really not interested. And they're all really happy with it, and they're all really happy raising each other's children and hanging out, and there's very little animosity between them. Obviously, yeah, they do have their arguments. I mean, I've seen a couple of arguments, but the next day they're still there, chipping in, doing their chores, and they work, live, and love together, as they define love. That is.
The Maasai are herders. They're pastoralists. They take animals out into the desert. They have smaller populations than horticulture or agriculture populations. They still rely on kinship very heavily. You have to belong to a family. This is your security. This is where you will be most safe. So promising wives to families is the way this takes place. And this is an arranged marriage. But as you can see with the Maasai, while the arrangement is set, the marriage itself can be kind of fluid in that the affairs happen, like with Nisa and her husband. So this is more of an alliance, cooperation, get the work done, than it is get married and get your own house.